Welcome to the first episode of Plead the Facts, presented by KI Legal. On today's episode, co-founders Andreas Koutsoudakis and Michael Iakovou discuss their legal paths and what brought them together.
So how did I end up becoming a lawyer? I always wanted to be a lawyer. My mother still shows me, kindergarten, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she still has it and says, I want to be a lawyer. So I went, my whole career through college thinking about, what do I want to be? And I questioned everything in college. And so I said, let me check out finance. And I was a finance major, went down that road. Ultimately, I hated that world. And so before I finished college, I went to work as a legal secretary at Kohler and Isaacs, and then a paralegal in between college and law school, and I realized I really liked it. So I went to law school, and I got my MBA at the same time. I still had that interest in business always, largely because I grew up with a family of business owners. My dad had a diner in Tribeca since 1989. And so I, learned and connected with, that entrepreneur mentality and what that means, the sacrifices. And so I went to law school, I got my JD MBA, and at that time when I graduated, 2008, the market had tanked, and when markets tank, lawsuits sky high, and I walked into work my first day as an associate at Kohler and Isaacs in May of 2009 with a wage and hour audit, 99-person U.S. Department of Labor audit, and a divorce in the other hand. 2 cases, day one as an associate. And I always connected. It was almost like, all of these business owners in my network were waiting for me to become a lawyer, but in reality it was the market was, perfect timing for the need for what I was doing. I knew the business very well. I always tell them I know what you tell me and what you don't tell me, because I've lived in their shoes vicariously through my father and not directly. And so what started out as wage and hour defense became, what else can I do? I don't want to just wait for my uncle, my cousin, my neighbor to get sued again or audited again. This is a horrible career. I'm just not excited about, being happy or benefiting every single time a client that you represent gets sued. And so I started seeing, how can I avoid this the next time, or at least make it smaller? Like, if you're doing something wrong, well, let's not do that wrong thing anymore, starting today. And I came up with different ways, from introducing handbooks to helping them with compliance with wage and hour laws. Even if you have tax violations or immigration violations, that doesn't mean you can't fix this one problem. That in turn took me from a wage and hour defense lawyer to an employment defense lawyer, because now that, since I wrote the handbook, who better to represent the business owner than in a discrimination case or investigation or harassment or some other employment-related issue than the person who wrote the handbook and introduced the policies. When I did that, interestingly, I quickly, in kind of figuring out, like, how am I going to do this, I quickly realized, small businesses can't afford a full-blown handbook by themselves from scratch. They can't afford all the pre and new hire documents, all the management documents, all the termination documents, all the things that really make you, compliant to a large extent, almost 100% with labor and employment laws. They can't afford it on a one-off basis. So I developed what was a labor and employment compliance package. I did it once. I did it all for diners at the time, because I knew I had access to hundreds of them. And so they all operate the same generally. I'm going to create one labor and employment compliance package that explains all these different issues, the posters on the wall, what does each poster actually mean? Don't just post it, you should know what it means. And I did all that in layman's terms. And I also created this full labor and employment compliance package, and I just sold it, $5,000 each one. And I was able to do that because I did it once without anybody paying me, and then I was just tweaking it for each one. My thought process was, I'm going to really give these business owners bullets to work with. So when they come to me with an issue, we've mitigated how many issues come up by just even doing this. But also I know that they're going to come up inevitably anyway. At least I'm going to have bullets to fire back with in representing them. And to this day, I still have those clients, all of them. Every single client that I got from that labor and employment compliance package, we still represent today. And it's really because of loyalty, right? No one before me, for them at least, not to say that other attorneys like this don't exist or other professionals, but no one had stopped the gravy train of waiting for the next lawsuit. They just kept letting them get sued and sued and sued, and it was the gift that keeps on giving. I don't want to be that, and they saw right through that, right? It was very affordable, the package, especially in relation to the value. That then transitioned to, well, they're still getting sued, so now what, right? Yes, the lawsuits, the exposure is smaller, so I started doing the corporate, spider web, sub-entities, holding entities, trusts. And that's when I realized that a lot of my business owners had a tremendous amount of other assets that they've accumulated over the decades that they've been here, and now they're looking to retire, but they can't because they're still dealing with all these wage and hour issues and other things that have personal liability. That for me was at some point, I would say in like 2013, 14, maybe 15. And I at that time I was at Cullen & Dykman, a much larger firm. I wanted to learn big firm operations. But that was the opening where I realized I have a huge gap in what I offer to my clients. And I started looking for a transactional half because I was missing that half. I was going to be incomplete until I had that. And Michael and I met. He did exactly, worked with the same types of clients, but on the transactional side. He was that other half. And we both had that same problem. We were incomplete until both sets of practice areas were available at the same table at the same time for the same clients. And here we are. My other half.
So on my end, I guess the pathway here has been the antithesis of straight. It's been left, right, all around. But interestingly enough, all of those different experiences kind of brought me and I guess collectively us to where we are today. On my end, I graduated like you at a time when people were not hiring. I was blessed that I had 2 offers coming out of school. That doesn't really mean much just because of how bad the economy was, but I did have a job. And prior to me finishing law school, I was an undergrad. I had interned at this firm, and then after, I guess during law school and then after the bar, that's where I started my career. It was actually an insurance defense shop. That's where I got my first experience and exposure to bodily injury claims, no fault claims, anything related to negligence, car accidents, slip and falls. But on the defense side, which over a decade later, there's a lot of irony to that because we typically find ourselves defending businesses, right? I did that for a while as an associate. I ended up leaving after a couple of years and starting my own practice, which, when I did that, a lot of people, close people to me, said, "You're crazy, you're nuts," and they were probably right. I had 0 clients. The phone wasn't ringing. I was doing a lot of learning on the fly, so to speak. I was lucky in that I had people, attorneys around me that I could just be, bouncing boards off of, ask them questions. A lot of people don't have that. I was very fortunate to have that. I guess the ideal scenario is to have somebody to take you underneath their wing, but things don't always work out the way they're supposed to, like in a fairy tale. But you do the best that you can, and that's exactly what I did. Pedal to the metal, put my head down, and kind of, in a sense, took anything that came through the door. And the things that came through the door initially were real estate matters, even things as simple as help me buy my first house, my first apartment, which are not easy, those types of transactions, not because you're doing a lot of legal writing or drafting tremendous PSAs or anything like that, but there's lots of little nuances to that space. We'll call it A, B, C, D, whatever, which as a first timer, unless you have the exposure, you don't know. So similar to you, how it started in one type of law, for me it was real estate, residential, and then commercial, and then I started doing lender representation, residential, then commercial, and then I started getting more commercial transactions, sale of businesses, partnership agreements, joint ventures, things like that.
and I've always been the quintessential deal junkie, just chasing the deal, wanting to make the deal happen, and that's me personally, but also representing my clients. So, but yeah, like you said, those litigation matters that are coming through the door, I would always have to farm them out, and that's how me and you met, right? On a potential class action case that I was handling with his help, and that's how good friendships and good partnerships are born, out of just working together, and kind of having the total sphere of services was what made this partnership so attractive. That and also your tremendous looks, but being able to represent clients across the board, I think, is always something that's been very important to me. I always would feel bad when my clients would come to me and say and ask me a question I didn't know the answer, like I had zero idea. And not that I know everything now, I don't, but at least now I know there's somebody in this office that I can ask, and that's important. And we've collectively, both Andreas and I, have worked really hard to bring that to our clients and to make this firm just an A to Z type one-stop shop for our clients.
Fast forward, when we eventually got together, I didn't know you. I didn't know you from anywhere other than this case, right? An attorney in that office referred you to me as the wage and hour guy, and we met at my restaurant and we talked, and eventually we said, let's do this. But I remember signing the operating agreement and saying, wow, I've never even had a beer with this person, but it was so clear what we needed to do on both ends, and it was the same clarity, just on the opposite sides, that we moved into it, and it still applies, So we looked at both of those firms. We looked at all big firms. We said, what types of full service law firms represent businesses? And they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. They're just Skadden Arps of the world, Sullivan and Cromwell, and all of those 1,000+ firms that have these super subspecialties in every practice area. And we said, well, our clients need someone who does Chapter 11 reorganizations. They need a good corporate attorney. They need the commercial real estate, the residential real estate, the litigator, employment, business divorce. But they don't need a casino and gaming specialist on their hospitality practice group team at the law firm they work with, right? That's not going to increase the chances that you're going to have a successful defense outcome in a wage and hour case, right? I always say they have 4 attorneys on the other side on any given deal or litigation. We have 4 too, right? So they're not allocating 1,000 lawyers to every single matter or every single deal. They're allocating what we're doing, and that's the balance that we've gone into without bringing on those other subspecialties.
Yeah, and like you said, subject matter expertise is one of the main reasons as to why we've done what we've done and why other firms continue to do what they do. Just having that variety of different practice areas and being able to offer all those things is extremely important. But the other thing is, the old economies of scale understanding, right? That I can only do X amount of things in a day, but me and you can do X plus plus, right? And if you want to do that, again, some people may not want to do that. They may be okay just doing X. But for both me and you, we were always, let's be the best that we can be, not to sound cliche, but that's the truth. And in order for us to get there, we needed each other, right? Mm-hmm. And it started out with just me and you, and then we brought on our first hire, then we brought on more hires and more hires and more hires. I think what kind of accelerated this was just where we were in the world at that point in time.
And where the world was at that time.
Exactly. So 2019, things are kind of, how we remember them, and then 2020 happens. And for all of our clients, again, whether real estate or business owners, hospitality, they needed all of those practice groups that you just mentioned. And
at the same time.
At the same time, correct, because the world was hitting them from left, right, and every single way. So we, even though you say slowly, I feel like it's been quickly that we've built up those practice areas out of necessity. Not just for us, because we have these questions coming in, and we want to make sure that we can give not just competent advice, but the best advice. So a good example is our bankruptcy partner, who I know that you have been working with for a long time, Ralph Prady. We said, Ralph, why don't you come join us? Right? We have all these restructuring and bankruptcy matters that were coming in through the door, and rather than saying, hey, I know a guy, go to my guy Ralph down in Midtown. Now Ralph's on our team, and Ralph, Michael, and Andreas can speak to each other and put our client in the best position to do well on this case or this litigation. So it's super important to do all that, and here we are. 4 years later?
Almost. I was just gonna say it's a big blur. What do you think we would have done if we officially joined, right? We created December of 2018, and our first day, for calendar purposes, tax purposes, all that stuff was January 1st, 2019. Year one was just staying alive. We had very small goals, just kind of combine what we were doing before, and we weren't really thinking about growth at that time, right? But we did. We had some massive cases came in early on, and we brought on senior attorneys early on, but we were still a 3-person shop in January of 2020, right?
Yep.
Do you think we would have had the same conversation if we were to consider joining a year later, knowing that the world was semi about to fall apart in a way it hadn't for over almost 100 years, right? Talking about timing, right?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is, who the hell knows, right? COVID, and we talk about it all the time, but I think as New Yorkers especially, it hit us really hard. And the way I would act now in hindsight, on anything, not just related to work itself, but just life in general, I think may or may not have been different, because again, you go through experiences, and those experiences mold how you look at opportunities, how you look at life decisions, how you look at everything, right? I can tell you on my end, COVID taught us, and me specifically, a decision or a lesson, I should say, that nothing is guaranteed tomorrow, right? And I think you would agree with me, right?
For sure.
So if you have one thing that, no matter if it was 2024, 2014, 2004, me and you are both high energy A-type guys, right? I'm your hype man, you're my hype man. Sometimes we need to hype each other down a little bit.
Yeah, we're de-hype guys to each other too sometimes.
Which is difficult, but I don't think that would have changed. So I still think in one way, shape, or form, we would have found each other. But the growth in conjunction with our energy, I think can also largely be attributed to what the world needed and what our clients needed at that point in time.
The only thing I agree, I think just a year later, there's no way we would have envisioned how big the firm would get when we first started talking in 2018, right? Ultimately,
no shot.
There's no way.
No
right?
way.
It was COVID that kind of blitzed the world and business owners in every single direction, like you said before, at the same time, and so that really exploded our growth, because we needed what we were offering. The clients needed what we were offering, and so we had to satisfy that demand and provide that services, a lot of times for free, right? Because these businesses were hanging on by a thread, and so that's what it is. But I personally think we probably would have said, let's wait a little bit and see what happens with this COVID thing.
Yeah.
If we were having, the same conversation in December 2019, January 2020, a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, and look,
It would have been the wrong decision, by the way.
Definitely.
Looking forward, it would have been completely wrong to say, let's wait.
Yeah.
We should have gone full
Yeah.
speed from the beginning, no matter what.
And look, just like last point on that, I think out of uncomfort comes growth. Right? In order to truly change as a person or as an organization, you need to have an impetus for change, and a lot of that comes from being uncomfortable, right? Because when you're learning new things or having to go through new experiences, humans, not to philosophize or whatever, we tend to kind of be comfortable in our known, right? In our known, what we do on a day-to-day basis. So in the same context, business owners, our clients, or real estate owners and operators, dealt with all these new fact patterns of things that they needed to account for, whether it was compliance, tremendous non-payment of rents across the board, issues with their landlords, right? Not due to market conditions, due to market conditions, but it's tied specifically to COVID. So they were dealing with all these new things. They were uncomfortable. Then what happens? They come to us, and we're dealing with all these new things. And in a sense, we were learning a lot of new practice areas that I had never done before, and yourself as well. Who had known that, out of wage and hour, you would have had to deal with COVID compliance and testing and handbooks and all of those things. They never even existed. But like any good attorneys, we sat down, we discussed, and we learned the subject matter as cases were coming down and guidance was coming down, vis-a-vis legislation and whatnot.
Yeah, it's issue spotting. So we want to be great issue spotters, and we do that by having a deep bench, experts in each area, right? People with experience, extensive experience in these individuals. And then we want to be problem solvers. What's the issue, and how can we solve that problem? That's what lawyers do, period. And you try to do the best you can by putting together the best team. So that'll forever happen. There's always a need for lawyers because there are always new issues and maybe new solutions to those problems. And that's really what we aspire to do. And our bet is that to solve them the best, to issue spot the best, and to solve those problems the best, you need the opposite of a jack of all, right?
Exactly.
You need a master of one in each category, but at the same table, working as
together.
a team. Yeah, not a bunch of individual independent attorneys that happen to be on the same floor, but people that are operating and thinking and collectively sharing and working together information on a regular basis only. Right, team. There's only KI Legal on that note.
And that's a massive differentiator for a firm, like ours, a middle-sized firm here in Lower Manhattan. A lot of times, like you said, you'll have the solo or the smaller firm that they're very good at these 2 or 3 practice areas or whatever, and then they kind of just refer out and they're speaking to whoever they referred that part of the case to, right? Whereas with us, we're having consistent meetings, consistent dialogue, and collectively, taking an overall approach into how we structure our next structure the deal, or what we do on the next part of this litigation, how we answer that complaint. I can't stress enough how important that is and how much of an advantage that really puts our clients at.
Yeah, and it's about the firm. It's about the firm's clients. It's not about any one attorney, right? So just to wrap up, I guess this conversation. KI Legal was Koutsoudakis and Iakovou Law Group, comma PLLC when we first started, right? And when we rebranded, like in a year after we started, we said, who cares about my name or your name, right? It's KI, that's it. It's the firm. It's not about who's a name partner and who's not, and it's not about us. It's about the client, period. We have one goal, and that is, how does this umbrella, this brand, this company, this firm make the lives and the businesses more successful of our clients, right? That's it. That's the name of the game. So those solo attorneys may be great issue spotters when it comes to wage and hour law, and those two are related. There are issues that need to be addressed, except that the client never gets in front of that other person when they go to those smaller firms or those solo attorneys or laser focused practice area attorneys. With us, they do, and they might not even know that they have a labor and employment issue, but they do.
Yeah.
Every single commercial real estate transaction where the buyer is an owner with employees of something, it's involved. It may be irrelevant otherwise, right? So that's what we do, and I think we're doing a good job. It's definitely been very, very difficult. We've grown ahead of ourselves sometimes, too slow most of the time in terms of keeping up with it. But like every business, it has its trials and tribulations, as you say. It's challenging. It certainly has been for us. But you plow through, and here we are. See what the next 3 years have in store for us.
When people ask me what types of clients do we represent, it's an answer that's changed over the last couple of years, and I think it's become more fine-tuned. We've really kind of hit our stride, whereas initially we started out representing, we would say, businesses and lenders, or companies and lenders. Now, and that's not that's not to say that that's not the truth. It is, but within the business context, we've really kind of outlined who our, I would say 90 to 95% of our clients are. It's restaurant and hospitality operators and real estate family offices, whether, private equity, $500 million, $1 billion funds to the owner operator that has 5 buildings and a restaurant, right? Anywhere in between. I think what's great about the services that we can give both of those types of industries is the A to Z that we were touching on before. Everything that they need and nothing that they don't. I mean, on the litigation side, we've grown that side of the practice out tremendously over the last 4 years, where we just started and doing mostly labor, wage and hour, discrimination, compliance stuff. I mean, you've taken walk us through like shareholder litigation.
So, I mean, the litigation side, and I have to clarify this because a lot of people think litigation is lawsuits, right? Oh, you're a litigator, I hope I never need you, right? But actually, you want me in your back pocket at all times, right? And that's how the transactional side uses us. You're the mechanism that's going to keep people in check or hold them accountable when they are not in check, right? Sometimes that ends up in litigation. Sometimes just the threat of it or being able to analyze these issues stops it from going to litigation, right? You hope you don't get to it. But the team, when you use it in that context, has become much more than just wage and hour defense, right? That was where I was in 2009 when I first started, but it became a full-blown labor and employment practice with compliance, preventive measures, preventive counseling as we call it, to litigation defense, from ADA cases to disability and discrimination in employment cases to wage and hour defense cases, state, federal, city audits and investigations, you name it. The labor and employment practice group is extremely comprehensive. Then you move on to the business torts, which is theft of trade secrets, business divorce, partnership shareholder membership disputes, oppression of a minority shareholder. I can't tell you how many times I get a call. Yeah, my partner for 30 years, one of which is my brother-in-law, changed the locks and they fired me. And I have access to nothing, and I don't know how I'm going to pay my mortgage this month. What do we do?
Yeah.
Huge problem, right? Or it's brewing and you want to stop it from getting to that point. Or it actually explodes and now you're in full force, litigation. Business divorce cases are very intense, emotional, stressful. And then you have commercial litigation, breach of contract, third-party agreements for goods and services, whatever the case may be. That's a very big umbrella type of practice area. And then you move on to, bankruptcy. Right? Bankruptcy thinks it's, oh my goodness, I don't want to do bankruptcy. But it's not, it's a fresh start, it's a reorganization. It's, I'm an okay business if I fixed X, Y, and Z. Or I need to leverage the power of bankruptcy so that I can get the landlord to the table and slow down the eviction process. In the meantime, I'm going to buy myself 90 days, which is then going to allow me to get everything together and solve not just the back rent that I owe, but also all these other people who are squeezing me with high interest rates and so on and so forth. So, be open-minded when you speak to us, because there's nothing that we offer here at the firm that doesn't have a specific use case and purpose for every one of our clients. There is a scenario that every business owner will encounter at some point in their life where something we do is a viable option that they need to consider.
And then bringing it full circle to the transactional side, and again, it goes literally full circle, right?
And figure eights in between.
Yeah. And it doesn't always go A, B, C. It may go A, Y, C, F, whatever.
Different languages.
Exactly, yes. I mean, corporate governance, which is super important. As I see a lot of our clients having more assets under management, more employees, more, different levels of stock, etc. I can't stress how important corporate compliance is, corporate governance. Then pivoting from that, your commercial real estate, your workouts, the restructurings that you mentioned, they all tie into each other. And then on the personal level, a lot of these principles, they have personal liability, specifically in the FLSA context and other types of areas of law. So it's important that asset protection is actually done as well, right? You work really hard 24/7, 365 at work, but do you take care of your stuff outside of work? which again can be attachable in a lawsuit or liened in a lawsuit if the law provides that that is the case. So it's important that you take preventative measures. The same way you do compliance and handbooks for your business, you also do your corporate and personal restructuring for yourself as well. So like you said, everything that they need, nothing that they don't, and it all kind of bleeds into each other. And I'm really proud that we can all service it here in-house. It's something that it brings a smile to my face.
Yeah, I'll say 2 points on some of the things you just said. With regards to corporate formation and corporate governance, that does not mean a binder in your accountant's office from 30 years ago
No.
that is blank and was strictly done for the purposes of formation, and he charged you $350 for it and you never saw it again. In today's day and age, that will come back to haunt you. There are requirements for maintaining the corporate protection. So remember, if your corporate binder is on a shelf in your accountant's office or in a box in your basement, you need to call us immediately, and let's do what we call corporate cleanup. You don't need to give it some fancy term. It's corporate cleanup. Let's get your house in order. That's step one, which is why we love when clients come to us, 6 months before they open a business, because we really can do things the best way up front, right? And the other thing is, with regards to asset protection, that's a really important one. You go to a commercial real estate attorney who, you use him to buy a building, and say, don't worry, we're going to protect you from personal liability. We're going to put it in an LLC, and you're going to be the member, but you're just a member of the LLC. The LLC owns it. You're protected from personal liability. To the commercial real estate attorney, he means you're protected from personal liability from a trip and fall or from some other tort type of injury case that happens at the property. What that commercial real estate attorney doesn't know, and therefore never advises you of, is that if he knows or that you have a business with employees, that has its own liability. You said FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, with wage and hour violations, state and federal law has personal liability for the owner operator of a business. So the LLC and you're the member in your individual name does not avoid that, right? So there's a gap in the issue spotting. And finally, trust and estates. We always say, meet a new client. Do you have a trust and estate plan? They say yes. And then we say, do you have an asset protection plan? They say, what's that? Well, it's trust and estate planning, your traditional trust and estate planning. Who gets what when you die, making sure you minimize taxes, so you're not just giving away, half of your estate when you pass, which comes out of nowhere, or forcing your family to start, fire sale properties just to pay that estate tax. That's the traditional, right? But then you get into asset protection, which is trust and estate planning with some strategic drafting planning for asset protection purposes during your lifetime, right? My father died at 59. You didn't expect that. COVID in 6 days, in and out. You have to account for these scenarios. And so, how do you plan for those things? It's a very difficult conversation to have with your family, but it's an absolutely necessary one. And one way that we found to kind of put that guard down is, yes, in the process we're going to address who gets what when you pass and all of those issues. But during your lifetime, there's something that you directly benefit from, and that's the asset protection component from personal liability across the board.
And the old adage of death and taxes, right? You can basically guarantee that both are going to happen, right? Either the IRS is going to come after you at some point, or you're going to have to pay your taxes, and everybody dies, right? But the one thing that I would add to that, basically like the third one, is if you own a business, it's not if you get sued, it's when you get sued, right? And that's why it's super important that every business owner does and looks at these things. And again, you don't need to understand the nuances of it, but you cannot put your head in the sand like most people have done historically and just kind of hope and pray for the best. Ask your lawyer questions about, how do I protect my assets? If he or she does not have that answer, then you need to be finding a new lawyer, because again, it's not if you get sued, it's when you get sued. And if you do not have these things in place, it can usually spell a large bit of trouble for you and for your business.
You want to be able to sleep at night, or at least sleep a little bit better. You still might not sleep as well as you want, but you're definitely going to sleep a lot better after these things are in place. And the more you kind of ignore it, the worse it's going to get. It's just going to continue to brew, and that manifests itself in problems with your partners, right? Something's off. You have something that's keeping you up, or you don't want to discuss it with them or her because you don't know how to handle it. You call us, call whoever your attorney is, hopefully someone that knows these different things, and address them so you're informed, and then you feel less scared about those issues, right? Our job as lawyers is to protect you. We can only protect you from what we know of or identify, even if you haven't told us. But we need to actually communicate with you. We need to have an opening to start exploring these things. And again, it goes back to issue spotting and then problem solving, period.
We put together this podcast strictly for the purposes of providing educational content for our clients and potential clients to get a more personal understanding of who we are. A lot of times they only, they see us based on what we put on social media or what we write in articles, but at the end of the day, we want people to know that we thoroughly enjoy educating the business community about all the goods and the bads of things that are happening in the business world. A lot of law firms don't like doing that, but on our end, we're not scared to share the quote-unquote legal tricks because there's so many. And I think that's one of the main takeaways from this and as to why we're doing this. We want to educate business owners because a stronger business community means stronger clients for us, and we can help you guys, you business owners, for a longer period of time if you are strong and in the know.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a way is really what we live by here, and educating our clients, making sure that they feel comfortable enough to interact with us, to reach out to us. I can't tell you how many people call us we've never met before in our lives, from Greece, from Canada, from South Africa to Ohio, to you name it. And that's just because they find out about us, they've seen something. It's important, like you said, for them to have that personal connection. But our goal is for you to put your guard down and speak to us, reach out to us, and also for you to be more informed than you otherwise would be without having read one of our articles, one of our blogs, watched one of our videos, heard one of our podcasts. We want you to be informed so that we can have a productive conversation with you. Maybe you don't even need us with regards to an issue that you read or hear about or watch on a video, right? And you actually have enough information from the information we provided for you to solve any given problem that you're dealing with at that minute that we just discussed. But what we've done is, our goal is to build trust with you before we even interact with you, and to help you solve problems, as they happen, and to the extent that they actually need, additional legal services for it, other than what we've provided you in this, than the information we've given you, that you have, a firm that you can count on, that you can trust, that you can turn to, who isn't looking at you from, let me make sure you need me, and then you will forever be with me, right? We're a business firm. We represent businesses. The name of the game is to keep as much money in your pocket as possible, and to see you grow and continue so that we can represent your kids one day, right? It's no good for us if we just wait for the next wage and hour case, like I realized when I first started practicing, right? We got to do better than that, and that is, this kind of thing, which is the stuff that nobody pays us to do, right? But it's important to take our time out of our day and provide that information back, and then ultimately find that way to solve whatever problem you have that you bring to us. So we're excited.
Yep.